We all know that sourdough is a journey with ups and downs, but with these secrets, hopefully you can have a lot more risen loaves and a lot less flat pancakes. So let's get into it. My name is Lydia, and I'm really glad that you are watching this video. Let me know in the comments if you have other sourdough secrets or if you found this video helpful. I respond to all my comments and would love to hear your thoughts. Let's start with secret number 1, which is that time is more important than temperature. A lot of beginners get really fixated on hitting precise temperatures like 70 degrees for bulk fermentation or 450 degrees for the oven, but what really matters is how your dough feels and behaves. Sourdough is less a recipe and more kind of like a relationship. On cooler days, your dough might need 10 to 12 hours to bulk ferment. On warmer days, maybe only 6 hours. Instead of watching the clock, watch your dough. Learn to read its signals. Look for signs like how it bubbles, how it jiggles when you shake the bowl, how it holds its shape after a fold. Sourdough is much more about the feel of the dough than it is about what the dough supposedly should be doing. Use your hands, eyes, and nose to get to know your dough. When I started paying attention to the dough rather than the timer, my loaves got a lot more consistent and reliable. The second secret is that your starter is only as healthy as its last few feedings. People think if their starter just doubles in size, then it's ready. But really, doubling in size alone is not enough. A strong starter smells sweet and slightly tangy, not overly acidic. It has fine, tight bubbles, not just the big ones. If you've been feeding it irregularly or storing it in the fridge and only feeding once a week, which is totally okay to do, but your bread will show a lack of strength compared to if you do feed it on a regular schedule. You can still make incredible bread by keeping your starter in the fridge, but you need to take just a few extra steps. Before a bake, I give my starter at least one good feeding, but ideally 2 or 3 feedings at room temperature. That way I know it's active, balanced, and ready to raise a loaf. The third secret is that tension in your dough is everything. When you shape your loaf, you need to create surface tension so it can hold its structure and rise upward instead of spreading out and sideways. Most people undershape their loaves. They fold, tuck, and hope for the best. But a good shaping technique involves stretching the outer layer of dough over itself like a balloon. You want a tight, smooth, stretched dough on the outside. If your dough sticks to the bench or tears, use a little flour or water on your hands, but just make sure to not overhandle it. On your next loaf, practice shaping like your bread depends on it, because in many ways, it does. The fourth secret is that the cold proof isn't just a convenience. It's actually where the flavor develops. After shaping, I always place my dough in the fridge for anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. Not only does this make baking more flexible, for example, if I don't want to bake it until the next day, I am free to do so. But it also develops a deep, rich flavor and a better crust. The cold slows fermentation, which gives the bacteria time to create those subtle, sour notes that we all love so much. Plus, cold dough is also easier to score. You'll get better oven spring, prettier ears, and a deeper color from the longer Maillard reaction. So don't skip it. The fridge will end up being your best friend. The fifth secret is that most of the problems people have with sourdough aren't really big problems. They're more just part of the process. For example, you have a flat loaf, maybe you overproofed. You have a dense crumb, maybe your starter was too weak. too sour, too bland, too sticky. There's a reason bakers call sourdough a journey. You are working with a living culture. There are so many little tweaks that you learn along the way, and also because every environment is different, what works for another baker may not work for you. The best advice I can give is to bake often and keep notes. Write down what you did, how it looked, how it felt, what the weather was like, how long things took. Patterns will begin to emerge, and slowly your instincts will sharpen. You'll start needing recipes less and start trusting your hands more. So keep notes and remember that what you may see as a problem is most likely just a learning opportunity. The sixth secret is that flour matters more than you think. The type and quality of your flour affect everything about your loaf. Its flavor, texture, even fermentation speed. Switching from all-purpose flour to a strong bread flour with higher protein gave my loaves more strength and oven spring. Adding even a small amount of whole grain like 10% rye or whole wheat flour boosts the flavor dramatically. That being said, I still use unbleached all-purpose flour for lots of my loaves, and it works just fine. You can still make great loaves with plain old all-purpose unbleached flour, but I would encourage you to experiment a little bit with blends to see what you enjoy the most. The seventh secret is that water quality can make or break your starter. If your tap water is heavily chlorinated, it might be slowing down or even damaging your wild yeast and bacteria. I saw huge improvements when I switched to filtered water. You don't need anything fancy, just let tap water sit out overnight or use a simple filter. I used a simple water filter and it was not expensive. If your starter seems strong, healthy, and to really not be having any issues, you might not even need to worry about the water quality. Secret number 8 is to embrace the Autolyse. Letting your flour and water rest for 30 minutes to an hour before adding the starter and salt gives the dough a head start on gluten development. This one step transformed my mixing process. The dough became smoother, easier to handle, and needed less kneading overall. However, I will say that it is not necessary. And if you are just looking for a super simple process, you can skip the Autolyse. But if you are trying to take your sourdough to the next level, I would encourage you to experiment and expand into the Autolysing world. The 9th secret is to not skip the bench rest. After you pre-shape your dough, let the dough rest on the counter for 15 to 30 minutes before the final shaping. This relaxes the gluten and makes your final shaping more effective. A well-rested dough is much easier to shape tightly without tearing, and that leads to a better final structure. Again, this is what I would encourage you to do if you're wanting to elevate your loaves, but it is not absolutely necessary. Secret number 10 is that steam is your crust's best friend. When your loaf is put inside a hot oven, steam slows the crust from forming too soon, which allows your bread to rise fully before setting. I bake in a Dutch oven or a cast iron combo to trap steam naturally. But if you're baking on a stone or sheet, try pouring hot water into a preheated tray at the bottom of the oven. It makes a huge difference in crust texture and color. The first 20 or 30 minutes that you're baking with the bread covered is truly crucial to getting that great rise. And if you're still struggling with your loaves, do not give up. Watch this video on why your bread won't rise, and I will see you next time.